when between October 1977 and January 1979, the strangled and brutalized, and usually nude bodies of young women were found in the hilly areas that surround the center of Los Angeles. The press attributed them to a killer they named the Hillside Strangler. But from quite early in the investigation, the police knew that they were looking for two sadistic murderers who were working together. The first body was discovered on the morning of October 18, 1977, on the roadside, Idos to Forest Lawn Cemetery. Fingerprints quickly established the victim's identity as Yolanda Washington, 19, well known to the Vice Squad as a prostitute who practiced haitiada along Hollywood Boulevard. She had probably been known to the same men as the killers of Yolanda Washington and Judy Miller. The absence of the three victims' clothing, amongst other evidence, made it clear that they had been killed elsewhere and later dumped where their bodies were found. The likelihood that they were specifically known to the killers was, however, put in doubt with the discovery on the 20th of November of the bodies of two schoolgirls, Dolores Cepeda, 12, and Sonia Johnson, 14. Then, within hours, the corpse of 20-year-old art student Christina Weckler was found in the hills above Glendale. 3 days later, the naked body of student Jane King, 28, was dumped beside the Golden State Freeway, and on November 29th, she had probably been known to the same men as the killers of Yolanda Washington and Judy Miller. The absence of the three victims' clothing, amongst other evidence, made it clear that they had been killed elsewhere and later dumped where their bodies were found. The likelihood that they were specifically known to the killers was, however, put in doubt with the discovery on the 20th of November of the bodies of two schoolgirls, Dolores Cepeda, 12, and Sonia Johnson, 14. Then, within hours, the corpse of 20-year-old art student Christina Weckler was found in the hills above Glendale. 3 days later, the naked body of student Jane King, 28, was dumped beside the Golden State Freeway, and on November 29th, student Lauren Wagner, 18, was found strangled in Glendale. These latest victims had not only been sexually assaulted, but also tortured and mutilated. The serial killings were now front-page news, and the citizens of Los Angeles were in a state of panic. The LAPD formed a special task force under Lieutenant Edwin Lenderson. More than 100 detectives were recruited, and a reward of $140,000 was offered for information, leading to the arrest of the Strangler. There was not much evidence to go on. A boy reported that he had seen Dolores Cepeda and Sonia Johnson speaking to someone in a car on the night of their disappearance. Another witness was able to give a few more details. She had seen Lauren Wagner's car stopped by two men who ordered her into their car. She described the men. One was around the age of 40, Latin-looking with bushy hair. The other was younger, with an acne-scarred neck. In Los Angeles, this description could fit many persons, but next morning she reported that a man with a rough East Coast accent had telephoned and threatened her with death if she told what she had seen. Fortunately, the threat was never carried out. However, on December 14th, the naked body of 17-year-old prostitute Kimberly Martin was discovered on a hillside construction site in downtown Los Angeles. She had been strangled and brutalized. It was established that she had been lured to her death by a telephone call to a local call girl agency, asking for a young blonde, preferably wearing black underwear, and offering $150 for her services. It was not until the 17th of February 1978 that the next victim was discovered. Police examining a car that had been pushed off a cliff in Angelo National Forest found the naked body of 20-year-old Cindy Hudspeth in the trunk. Cindy was not a prostitute, but a telephone operator, and she had been sexually assaulted by two men, one a non-secretor, and then strangled. Following this, there were no more murders by the Stranglers in the Los Angeles area. However, nearly a year later, on the 12th of January 1979, two university students, Karen Mandic and Diane Wilder, both 22, were found strangled and sexually assaulted in the back of a car in Bellingham, a small industrial town in Washington state, 1,000 miles to the north. Karen's boyfriend told the police that the two girls had been hired the previous evening by a man from a local security company to house sit for a couple of hours, and the man's name was Kenneth Bianchi. Bianchi was called in for questioning. He was relaxed and polite, and denied that he knew either of the dead girls. A search of his house revealed no evidence of the crime, but it uncovered a hoard of electrical goods that had been stolen from companies. Tendage W degree, arced 35-3 Sakati section U, 3 RD3, and that was sufficient for him to be charged. Meanwhile, the police learnt that the security company had one unoccupied property, which it searched for. Forensic scientists found several blonde hairs that matched Karen Mandic's and a single pubic hair that proved to be Bianchi's. The girls' clothes also carried fibers that matched a carpet in the house. Bianchi still held a Caforma driving license, and a check revealed that the address was of an apartment, Elding, where Christina Weckler had once lived, where Kimberly Martin was last seen, and across the street from where Cindy Hudspeth had been abducted. The case against Bianchi looked watertight, but then doubts were raised about his sanity, and a series of psychologists and psychiatrists were called in by his attorney. Bianchi agreed to be examined under hypnosis, and revealed an aggressive alter ego claiming to beau Steve Walker, which resulted in a diagnosis for the defense of multiple personality disorder. He confessed to many murders, implicating Buono as his partner, and describing in lurid detail how the pair had used fake police badges in order to abduct young women. They had taken them to Buono's house in Glendale and subjected them to torture and sexual assault before killing them. Steve Walker boasted, "Angelo is my kind of man. There should be more people in the world like Angelo." The prosecution, however, were not convinced. In Bianchi's house, the police found a number of books on psychology and hypnosis, together with two novels that dealt with multiple personality. And, looking into the academic record he claimed from Los Angeles City College, they found it full of inconsistencies. It was obviously a forgery. Requesting an original copy from the college, they discovered that it belonged to a psychology graduate named Steve Walker. Bianchi was found fit to stand trial on October 19th, 1979, and transferred to jail in Los Angeles. Buono was arrested on October 22nd, but what he did not know was that Bianchi had struck a deal to avoid the death penalty, agreeing to plead guilty to 7 counts of murder and to give evidence against his adoptive cousin. However, the forensic team could find little incriminating evidence in Buono's home, except minute fragments of fiber on 9 of the victims' bodies that matched a chair and a piece of fluff on Judy Miller's eyelid that was identical to the upholstery fabric in his workshop. In July 1981, the district attorney filed a motion for dismissal of the charges of murder against Buono on the grounds that the evidence against him was too slight. The police, the press, and the public were dismayed. Fortunately, in a very rare case of disagreement, the judge denied the motion and transferred the prosecution file to the office of the state's attorney general. Angelo Buono's trial opened on November 16, 1981, and dragged on for a full 2 years. Bianchi took the stand in June 1982. At first, his testimony was vague and contradictory, but the judge pointed out that he could be violating his plea bargain and be returned to Washington, at which point he fully implicated Buono. On January 9, 1984, the pair finally appeared for sentencing. Buono was guilty of 9 murders and was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Bianchi's worst fears were realized when he was sent back to Washington to serve a sentence of some 27 years before being eligible for parole.